What's good, everybody? My name is Alckemy. Welcome to the channel. Today, the video is about making your chords and your melodies more interesting via sound design approach. I am not very versed, especially in comparison to a special someone I know that I'm staring at right now, but at the same time, I have a couple of tricks up my sleeve to help make your chord progressions or your melodies more alive and less kind of like stagnant, because there's nothing more embarrassing than writing out a chord progression and it just sounds super boring in general. So let's take a look at a couple of these, and while we're doing that, be sure to hit the subscribe button because you've got nothing else to do if you're watching this video. And let's take a look at this choir that I've made. Now, the chords are nothing to write home about per se, but what makes this so interesting is actually a very simple trick, which is using modulation to use over a filter to make the chords seem more interesting or make them seem like they're quote-unquote evolving over time. Now, this patch is incredibly simple. It's literally just a saw wave with some detuning and some detuned, oh, there's no unison on this, and just a choir sample with a filter and some delay. And if you take the filter off of this, look at how much of a difference this makes. Pretty boring. But going back and adding the filter makes a huge difference in making the entire sound seem more ethereal. And so my advice to you on this particular sense is if you've got a chord progression and it seems a little bit boring, try adding some kind of LFO or a multi-stage envelope or something that changes, or even thinking about something in a rhythmic pattern to help make that chord kind of flesh out and seem more lustrous in that way. Now, the other thing that we wanted to talk about is something I debated on actually making a separate video about, but I wanted to take a look over here at this part of the project because this Arpeggiator right here, or Arpeggio rather, has a lot of interesting movement, and there's a lot of pieces to this that make it move. So let's go ahead and take a listen to that. Now, there's a few things that are making this work. For one, if you just take a look at the MIDI roll here, you can see that it's just a 1, 2, 3, a 4 beat melody that doesn't really do a whole lot, and it's the same exact, doesn't change at all whatsoever. But what does change are a few things. For one, I have this Arpeggiator here that is actually something that, again, I was thinking about making a separate video over, but I'll cover in this. The Arpeggiator within Bitwig is incredible because of this little feature right here, which is the humanize. And to make a long story short, this will push the individual notes a little bit late or a little bit early and add an imperfect swing to your Arpeggiator that seems more natural, but also a lot more groovy in that sense. So if you are trying to come up with a melody or something that maybe it seems like you have the notes right, but the feel or the vibe of it just quite isn't clicking, I would highly recommend that you throw an Arpeggiator on here. And you can do all the other stuff with changing the transposition and all that, but just adding swing, especially for halftime music, will go a long way. And then the other thing that I've done is I have added an octave here, so that way it sounds like it's going doom 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 doom. I know that wasn't correct, but as opposed to just this. So you can see how much work that Arpeggiator in itself is doing to give this way more interest and make it actually seem like it's grooving with the rest of the track. Now, the last thing that I want to discuss is the idea about creating variations and creating fills, and there's a few different ways to do that. For one, Bitwig is amazing because you are able to manipulate both MIDI and audio on the same track via the hybrid tracks. So if you have something that you want to do for a fill per se, just like this, you can see that this is in MIDI, and then I bounced this out into audio and just did a couple of quick glitch cuts right here. And that kind of helps set in reset the rhythm rather. And then what I did to make that a little bit more cheeky was I added the next piece of this, which is the macros and the modulators. Now, Phaseplan is an amazing tool for this, but you can do this in just about anything. But what I've done is I've mapped very basic changes to the sound via these macros here. So one of them controls how much an octave plays, one of them controls how much a reverb comes in, one of them controls a filter, one of them controls a detuning, all that and the like. And so what you're able to do is kind of pick this out and draw these in specific sections of this, as you can see here, via just clicking on all these, that allow you to do very basic automation, but changes the sound over time, literally. So instead of it just being da, 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 like if you have something that's catchy, and this is something that I've learned from EPROM, and there's a video out on the internet where he talks about this, but if you've got a catchy rhythm or a catchy riff, you can create very basic variations from that by automating an effect of it over time. You know, that way you have something that still has a familiarity within whatever it is that you're playing, but it creates more interest because it's emphasizing that, right? Because it's like, here's the idea, now here it is again, but in a different coat of paint. And when you combine that with adding maybe, you know, more rhythmic sections or other small changes with that, then the tune is still pushing forward without you having to write, you know, like another melody or another completely different section. It's just kind of what I would describe as elaboration. So within that, these are just a couple of things that you can do. There's way more that we could talk about in the future, but for the sake of efficiency, that's what I pretty much have for you guys today. Be sure to like and subscribe. Consider becoming a member if you want access to the VODs or the master classes that I've got coming out. And I'll see you in the next one.